How to overcome the anxious avoidant trap in relationships. Oh my God. So, I mean, if you are one of my students and you are here watching this, then you already have some of the frameworks and curriculums that I have developed in order to accomplish this. I also have a lot of videos on my YouTube channel talking about this very topic. But so for today, I'm just going to maybe talk about it in a different way, and maybe it will land, differently. So when we find ourselves caught in an anxious avoidant relationship, it is really an emotionally complex thing. And I tend to think of it as a catalyst, a catalyzing relationship, because anxiety and avoidance are two sides of the same coin. When we are anxious, we are often reaching out and seeking things, people, places, things that are going to alleviate that feeling of anxiety. So in some ways, we are avoiding that feeling. We are avoiding the self through this outward movement in order to find relief, usually temporarily. When we are avoidant, instead of reaching out, we move inwards and we cut off contact inside between ourselves and our feelings, and between ourselves and anything that might stimulate that feeling. Okay, so I really want to emphasize that anxiety and avoidance are the same impulse. It's just when we're looking at it through the framework of attachment styles, one looks like it's outward reaching and one is inward. Now, attachment styles, and then you'll hear people say, well, with this person, I'm anxious, with that person, I'm avoidant, because it's the same energetic thread. Additionally, these are just expressions of the nervous system seeking alleviation of anxiety, relief from anxiety. And it's interacting with the people, places, and things in our environments to determine, is fighting here, fighting for connection, fighting for this going to get me what I need? Or is pulling away, withdrawing, flying away until it might be safe to come back going to get me what I need? And if neither of those things work, then I'm just going to shut down entirely and disconnect or numb out, because that's the only way that I can escape this. I have to escape my body in order to escape this conundrum, this unsolvable thing. And usually in that case, that's when we have fearful avoidance or disorganized attachment, because the sources of comfort or relief are also the sources of threat, and there's no clear path through that. Okay. So when we are in anxious avoidant relationships, we typically have met someone who is inhabiting whatever the opposite end of that spectrum is, who is inhabiting the other choice that could have been made in the original situation where you experienced that core wound, right? And so I believe that these relationships are a spiritual opportunity to recognize how our ego has put restrictions on the way we experience love, on the way we inhabit ourselves, and on our possibilities for love in the world, right? So how do we navigate that? Well, the first thing you want to do is become aware of your triggers, right? That what happens inside or externally that creates a discomfort in my body, an anxious feeling, a string of negative thoughts, right? What stimulates that in the moment? And because the more you become increasingly aware of that, the more power you will gain over how you will respond to it, right? You become someone who acquires more choice in your actions rather than being impulsively compelled by them, being a captive to your emotional response, right? Emotions are energy moving through the body, and they are information that is, I believe, bringing you in closer or further away from the opinion of your spirit. And they express themselves through movement, i.e. behavior. They express themselves through thoughts, and those thoughts lead us to formulate words, right? But they also express themselves through the body. And this is like when you say someone's energy or someone's disposition, this is that energy being expressed through the body. Psychologists call it affect. Okay. Now, so first you want to become aware of your triggers and how it's impacting the energy in your body, and how it compels you to move towards or away from whomever it is in your environment that is creating that stimulus. Okay. So for anxious partners, typically that means someone is pulling away for whatever reason, and now they feel like they have to chase because they feel like there's a certain degree of proximity they need in order to feel safe. For avoidant partners, that chasing is going to drive them even further away because they're feeling smothered or over obligated, or like their independence is being encroached upon, and that's going to cause them to shut down or pull back even, or push away, right? So those are things that are triggers, and what specific words, behaviors, intentions are creating that response. Okay. Then you want to rule out, number two, you want to rule out communication issues. So as I said before, sometimes we just have piss poor communication. And I would argue, whether you're secure or not, everybody, and at least in Western society, is taught really bad communication skills, really bad communication skills. No one is taught how to speak honestly or authentically about their emotions. It's built into our grammar, bad communication. Although I will say, I feel like this next generation is getting much better at it. But we want to rule out communication issues, because sometimes it's just the way you're saying what you're saying. It's just the words that you use that inspire your partner to fall down a rabbit hole of what you could possibly mean. And they've been taught not to ask direct questions for whatever reason. And so now they're just operating under a bunch of assumptions without even reality checking, right? So this is why I say safe and then within that, there are communication strategies that work better with people based on their attachment style. So as I mentioned before, soft strategies work better with individuals that are struggling with avoidance, whether it's fearful avoidance or dismissive avoidance. And that is framing your language in such a way that it is respecting their autonomy. It's expressing appreciation for who they are and what they do, while being specific and not vague in your language, right? Creating opportunities for them to be part of a co-creative process and make choices and decisions instead of feeling obligated. Okay. Soft strategies, that's going to work best with someone who's dismissive avoidant or someone who is fearful avoidant and leaning avoidant in that moment. Safe strategies are best used with anxious open hearts. And these are strategies that frame your communication first by reestablishing that the relationship is secure, that they can feel safe. So you're reassuring them. You're being, again, very direct and clear in your communication, and that you are somehow establishing contact while you are having a communication. So for example, like touching their arm or holding their hand or moving closer to them, even if you're having a difficult conversation. Something that is reassuring and creating safety for them while affirming that you are still connected, even though you're having a difficult conversation, and that it's okay to have hard feelings, right? And that you're not going to crumble as a result of it. So, and it's important to recognize this, because the way that we want to receive love, or the way that we want to receive communication, may not be the same way that your partner wants to love and loves and wants to receive communication. So sometimes people say, oh, that's too hard, or, oh, I want it the way I want it. And when we do that, we completely dismiss the fact that other people have their own experiences. But when we can show up with compassion and generosity and be like, yeah, I love my partner enough to want to know how I can deliver this in such a way that they will feel loved, that they will feel like I care. And maybe it's not the way I receive it, but it's the way they receive it. And because I love them, and because there's a level of selflessness in that, I want to create space for their experience. Because once I do that, now I feel they will feel more connected to me, and I will feel more connected to them. Becomes that attuned reciprocal cycle, right? That's called, and then we can start to have what's called co-regulation. And that means that we can utilize that energy that gets created in the relationship between us as a resource. Not only can we auto-regulate, meaning we know how to regulate our own nervous system, but our partner now can generously afford the resources of their nervous system to help us auto-regulate, right? That's just one of the delicious benefits of being in a relationship, and why not? Okay. So ruling out communication issues is going to help you recognize, is it really that we just have bad communication? Because I have seen it where people clean up their communication and they're like, wow, that completely changed the relationship. The other thing happens is you clean up the communication and you realize it really is insecure attachment styles, because oftentimes when we have someone who has a lot of momentum caught up in their insecure attachment, you start speaking in a more emotionally honest and authentic way, crossing your T's, dotting your I's, using the safe and soft strategies, what have you. And you're really getting to the meat of what's going on there. And all of a sudden, their defense mechanisms are turned up to full volume, right? And that is because you are doing it right. People are like, I'm doing it wrong. No, it's because you're doing it right. And you're starting to get at what is the real underlying issue here. And usually it is that people were attracted to this relationship because they could hide. Because with all of the back and forth attention to really pointless things that you're arguing about, creates a wonderful fog and air of distraction and curtain behind which you get to hide. And so when you start speaking in a more fluent and direct way, there's no way to hide. And so people start becoming extremely defensive and they amp it up. But that's good information now, right? Because now you know, oh, you're becoming a truth finder, not a strategist or magician. You're becoming a truth finder about the real level of compatibility possible here, okay? That also means now, which is the next thing, the third thing, once you get to that point, you're taking a personal inventory. Because the relationships in your life are a reflection of who you have been up until this point. So if they are so stubborn, it means there's some part of you that resonates with them, that resonates with that obstinance, that wants to hide too, that chose a partner that doesn't open up emotionally, that forces you to chase them because they don't look too closely. And therefore, some part of you doesn't have to be found out, right? Or doesn't have to be exposed for not being good enough, or not being worthy enough, or failing in some way. So we have to take that personal inventory and we really have to ask ourselves, how much have I actually contributed to this dynamic? Whether it is by tolerating certain things or, bending over backwards with things like people pleasing or not sticking up for ourselves or not having good boundaries, so on and so forth. So this is what taking a personal inventory is about. And also asking ourselves, what is it that I want from a relationship in general? Outside of this attachment, anxiety, and compulsion I have to be with them, is this really what I want from a relationship in general? Sometimes we don't know. Sometimes we haven't even asked that question until we encounter a relationship like this, which is why I say they're catalytic relationships. Then we also need to get over and need to be special. This is number 4, getting over and need to be special. Why is that? Well, because when you have a need to be special, and oftentimes I would argue anxious avoidant dynamics are driven by the idea that you want to be the exception to someone else's rule. You want to be the exception. You want to be the one person who convinces that avoidant curmudgeon that you're worth it. Or you want to be the one person that anxious partner is willing to bend over backwards and do everything for you so that you don't have to challenge your own fears and put yourself out too much. They're just going to rescue you with all their fire and all their effusiveness, right? Because you're just that special. So the other thing, it happens in the other direction. The other direction is we want to be special in our suffering, right? Oh, well, maybe romantic relationships are possible for them, but it's not possible for me. I'm the exception, right? So I'm exceptional in my suffering, because that still makes me special. And usually this stems from not feeling special enough. This stems from not being honored for who you are. This stems from not being seen as valuable, for not being validated, right? So we have to let go of that. We have to let go of that and understand that a healthy relationship is going to make you feel exceptional, even within the framework of commonness. Even within the framework of like, no, you're not special, but you are still unique. And when you are just like everybody else, guess what? The possibilities for everybody else open up to you. The possibilities become endless. And so we have to let go of that. And of course, the paradox is once you let go of that need to be special, then you will find someone who thinks you're pretty darn special. Right? You don't have to be the rare exception to somebody's rule because you've got nothing to prove, right? And you can make it work with anybody because God is in everybody. The divine is in everyone. Love is there. And you're connected to it at all times. I don't have to find love. I am love. And I take myself everywhere I go. That's how ubiquitous love is in my life, which is why I'm secure in every situation I enter. Doesn't mean I don't have feelings. Doesn't mean I don't respond in the moment. Doesn't mean I don't enjoy experimenting, dating, getting my hands muddy in the materials of life, in the contrasts of life. But I have that soul-centered security, that connection to the transcendent and to the ubiquitousness of love. So it's okay when things don't go right, because I know it's just a contrast nudging me left or right on my path, right? So getting over the need to be special. The last thing I'll mention here is taking a practical look at your values and your priorities. So oftentimes I will encounter partners who are obsessed with each other or can't get over each other. But if you ask them, and how do you imagine a long-term relationship with them? They can't, because either they've never even talked about what their priorities and values are in a long-term relationship, or they know for a fact that the person probably wouldn't show up in the ways that they need. I mean, you got to think about the trials of life, getting cancer, losing family members, losing a job. Like, what are the struggles in life? Is that someone who's going to be there for you, connect with you, and be able to go walk through that fire with you long term? And a lot of times we know they're not. I have a video on my YouTube channel. It's about stay or go, how to make that decision according to your chakras. And usually the way I like to talk about this is evaluating it through the gifts of the chakras in your body. In other words, your body knows, and we either listen or we don't. So for example, in the root, which is the shadow aspect is fear, but the gift is safety in the body and body integrity, right? So how do I feel inside my own body when I'm with this person? Am I on eggshells? Am I on edge? Am I waiting for them to say or do something wrong? Do I feel heightened arousal, but it's really a form of adrenaline high? And if that's the case, are there spaces in this relationship for me to relax, to be harmonious, to just kind of be with my sensuality, to rest? Are there restful moments of silence that feel really comforting and nourishing? And then you just keep moving up. I'll put a link to that video in the caption of the replay, but you move up into the sacral, and the sacral, the gift of that is creativity and duality and sexuality and emotional flow. And so the shadow aspect of that is guilt, not being able to hold dualities, splitting things into black and white thinking, right and wrong, not being able to abstract, becoming rigid in a fragile kind of way so that you're not flexible, that you can't have emotional fluidity. You have a limited emotional range, right? And so when you move into ask your very own sacral, how do I feel emotionally with this person? Are my emotions limited? Can this person, what's the sex like? Is it explosive because that's the only place I connect with them? And so I feel like I'm a slave to my sex drive? Or is it a really sensual experience and the sex is a dynamic expression of this healthy and balanced relationship that we have? Moving up into the solar plexus, it's all about identity, how you produce what you put out into the world, how you find meaning out of your productivity and ego identity. The shadow aspect of that is imposter syndrome, caring too much about what other people think about you. Is there an element of hiding in this relationship? Are you hiding parts of yourself? Are you suppressing parts of yourself because of a fear of being found out? Right? Moving up into the heart, grief and codependency is the shadow aspect of that, whereas compassion, love, acceptance of self and other. So are there parts of you that are grieving? Are there parts of you that are codependency is another shadow aspect of the heart? Are there codependent dynamics going on in the relationship where one person is the caretaker and the other person is a dependent, and there's sort of a dysfunctional imbalance there? Moving into the throat, can you speak your mind? Or when you speak, are you being placating? Are you just saying things they want to hear? Are you lying about how you really feel and what you really think about things? Right? Moving up into the third eye. This is all about the ability to visualize and vision and see possibilities and assembling your experience into wisdom. The shadow aspect of that is limiting beliefs, only seeing a limited number of possibilities, not being able to reframe negative thoughts, right? So what do you think of yourself when you're with them? How do your beliefs about the possibilities for your relationship or for love for you in the world in and of itself? Or do they become limited, or are they open and expansive and creative, right? Is there a sense of meaning and purpose, right? The intuition. Is there a sense of a greater purpose and sense of generativity? Being with this person, does it contribute to your sense of purposefulness and meaning in this lifetime? Does it feel like when you're together that your love is generative, that it is inspiring, that it is collaborative, that it contributes to something bigger than just the two of you alone? Crown, right? So this is what it means to take a practical look at your values and priorities. And of course, there's all the other things that come along with that. Religious beliefs. Would you want kids or do you not want kids? Where do you want to live? How much money how are you going to handle your money, right? Blah, blah, blah. All that practical stuff too, right? Are you having any of those conversations? So this is where I would really have you dig in, because the whirlwind of the emotional highs and lows can kind of pull you away from that. And that's super important stuff, right? So those are the things I would probably tell you to look at with anxious avoidant relationships. And for more in-depth discussion of this, I would invite you to check out the links that I will include in the replay, or you can just go to my YouTube channel and search anxious avoidant relationships, and you'll see the numerous videos I've made on the topic. If I were to say, if there were something that you wanted to take action on, I would tell you to rule out communication first. So a good place to start with that, I have a program called Decode Mixed Signals and Relationships. That's a low-cost course, which you can check out. The other thing you might explore is I have a program called the Courageous Communicator. It's a 9 lessons, and we focus on the safe and soft strategies in communication, specifically looking at how to communicate using attachment styles, also weaving in my psycho-spiritual approach, where we are incorporating some parts work and connecting to the body and the body's wisdom. In terms of, we can learn to say all the right things at the right time, but unless our emotional energy is coming from the right place, it's not going to make a difference. And so that's why we have to make sure that our words are matching up with the emotional energy that we are carrying, right? Otherwise, resentment usually builds up. So I hope that helps. Also, remember to subscribe and ring the bell for notifications. I put out videos once a week, and I wouldn't want you to miss out.